All right. Well, hello and welcome everybody to Scam Chat Wednesdays 2025. I'm Strat Maloma with the AARP California State Office, where I also serve as the lead for the AARP Fraud Watch Network, which is a free fraud prevention and education resource that's available to anyone. Our network is all about helping communities spot and avoid frauds and scams through information, education, resources, and events like we're hosting today. Thank you for joining us for our final Scam Chat Wednesdays 2025 conversation. Like our previous conversations, I hope you will join our conversation and help us make this an interactive call by sharing your comments, your experiences, your thoughts, and asking your questions. And as always, we've set aside time at the end of today's presentations to answer your question. Well, today we're going to be talking about financial exploitation, what it is, how it works, how we can stay protected from it. But before we get into it, let me share a few housekeeping items with you. Please, as always, we are for audio purposes. We ask that you please keep yourself on mute until I invite you to unmute yourself. To ask a question, please simply use our raise the hand feature or post your question in chat. And when we get to our Q&A session, I'll invite you to come on and ask your question. If you're not comfortable asking a question, I'll be happy to do so for you. Lastly, today you're going to hear from speakers from BedSedic as well as from Alzheimer's LA. But in full disclosure, that the opinions shared by our speakers may not necessarily represent those of the agencies, and we share this information for educational purposes only. So, folks, today we're going to be talking about elder financial exploitation and the role that Alzheimer's and dementia plays. Unfortunately, or sadly, should I say, that issues like Alzheimer's and dementias really contribute to impairing our memory. They can affect our judgment, our decision making, and often those affected by it are more vulnerable to financial exploitations and scams because we can forget conversations that we've had. We can struggle to recognize red flags of frauds and scams, or maybe we can unknowingly authorize a fraudulent transaction on any of our accounts. And these types of cognitive declines can really be difficult for us to sometimes identify. They can be perpetrated by loved ones as well as strangers. So it makes it more important for us to understand the issue as well as some of the red flags associated with it. So to help us understand more about this issue, we're joined today by Peter Niles with Alzheimer's LA. Peter, welcome. Peter,
Thank you.
to get us going, could you take a moment to introduce the work that you do yourself and your agency for our audience?
Thank you, Strat, for the invitation to be here today. My name is Petra Niles, and I am a gerontologist, and I'm currently the Associate Director of Black and African American Community at Alzheimer's Los Angeles. We are an organization that serves our community here in Los Angeles. We provide outreach, education, for me specifically, strategic partnerships with churches, organizations, and other entities throughout Los Angeles and Los Angeles County. And we're pleased to be able to be here today.
Thank you, Peter, for being with us. Really appreciate it. This is really an important topic. So in a moment, we'll meet our second guest, and then we'll take some audience questions on the issue. Peter, I just want to start off the conversation learning more about Alzheimer's and dementia. So can you help us understand, first of all, what the difference is between Alzheimer's and dementia and why that distinction matters?
So I'll start off to make it easier. Dementia is when thinking declines to the point of seriously interfering with daily life, meaning from the time someone gets up in the morning until the time they go to bed. There are different types of dementias, and Alzheimer's is the most common type, and there are others such as vascular dementia, Parkinson's type dementia, Lewy bodies, and so on. The importance of why this matters is because there are specific symptoms with specific dementia, and certainly the medications that would accompany that would be important. So if your loved one has a diagnosis of a dementia, please probe further with the physician to ask what type.
Speaking of loved ones, what would be some of the earliest signs that a loved one um, may be dealing with dementia or cognitive decline? What should we be looking out for?
So some of the early signs, memory loss that disrupts daily life, meaning asking the same question or repeating, telling the same story because short-term memory is affected and they don't remember that they did ask that question or shared that story already. And relying heavily on memory aids such as Post-its or notes to remember different things. There's also difficulty planning or solving problems, and that has to do also with managing finances to be able to manage a checkbook or balance a checkbook if they still use it, and to be able to count change and anything that has to do with finances. Forgetting how to do familiar tasks such as cooking, organizing a trip with the family, playing cards, or doing things like that. There's also confusion with date and time or place. There is also trouble telling colors apart. There's also trouble following a conversation and maybe finding the right words. There's also misplacing things and not having the ability to retrace your tracks so that you could actually go back and find what's missing. Poor judgment. When there's a diagnosis of a dementia, poor judgment is present. And so making poor decisions, giving away money inappropriately, less attention to grooming and self-care, those are things that may come up. There's also withdrawing from social situations because it's overwhelming for them. Mood swings, so changes in personality, you may have noticed. And also, as I mentioned, difficulty remembering where where they live in proximity to a store that they've gone to for many, many years in the same neighborhood, and may wander away or get lost. So there are a lot of things to consider, but you don't have to wait until all of these symptoms show up. One concern is enough to make a doctor's appointment to probe and see what's going on with the person.
Thank you. That's really great to hear or to learn about how across your entire life that Alzheimer's and dementia affects you. So I was going to ask you, the impact of Alzheimer's and dementia is not just on memory, decision making, relationship, day-to-day life. What can we do to support those changes, especially with dignity and sensitivity to what the person is going through?
For someone who is living with this disease, it's really important to consider their journey now. What that looks like will certainly be different from before. And to be able to uh, kind of have an understanding, empathy, compassion, those things that sometimes can be challenging when you're working with, caring for someone who has a dementia. But it's also important, again, to be educated about the disease, find out the resources in the community, and go from there. Make sure that you do this work as a caregiver with support.
Thank you, Peter. It really is a challenge when you're trying to tell somebody not to send money to a stranger on the phone, but not realizing maybe the challenge that they're having on their side. So I really appreciate the information that you share. I now want to welcome our second guest to the conversation, Alyssa Anderson with Bed Hello, Lisa. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being able to share information with the audience about a topic that is so severe in all of our communities across the world, actually. So, uh, my name is Elisa Anderson. I am Betzedic's Elder Abuse Prevention Advocate. My role is to go into the community and provide educational resources through outreach and trainings and clinics in regards to what is elder abuse, fraud and scams due to elder abuse, as well as uh, prevention measures, which could be estate planning and different things like that, and linking the individual with resources and knowledge so they are empowered to be able to recognize what's going on and try to proactively make decisions, which is what part of this conversation is about. And so that's my role.
Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate you joining us, especially to talk about such an important topic, and we look forward to learning more. So I have a few questions, and I hope an audience, please, if you also have questions for our guests, please post them in chat, and we'll get to our Q&A section in just a little bit, and we'll look to answer some of those questions. So, Alyssa, let me ask you, in your work with Betsedic, are you seeing any patterns? In how Alzheimer's and dementia increases vulnerability to financial exploitation?
Oh, for certain. You know, a lot of times we don't realize that there may be some brain function decline in memory. We may feel like the individual is getting old and not pay attention and pinpoint what those things are. And so the lack of that ability or being aware of that ability certainly increases the vulnerability for someone to come in and take advantage. So, you know, they may be confused as well as having paranormal and not being able to reason, some of the same things that Petra talked about. So suspicion of a lot of different things. So these types of behaviors make them vulnerable, and increases the chances of being fraud or scammed because of their lack of those particular functions.
So, how do perpetrators, whether it's a stranger or individuals, family members, folks that we trust, how do they typically gain access or manipulate us, to give over either financial information or our money? How does it typically work?
Well, unfortunately, I hate to say that probably 70% of all the perpetrators is someone you know, family member, neighbor, a trusted individual. Okay. And so, with that being the start of something, we find that a lot of seniors, especially noticeable during COVID, suffered from loneliness, something that we as family and individuals may have not recognized with that person. So, loneliness and uh, maybe a change of health, medication, different things like that can make that person be very trustworthy to someone that they know and love, or just someone sometimes that just communicates with them on a regular basis. As individuals, we all need communications, and elders thrive on that because they don't have that all the time. And so that just kind of like opens a door for someone to come in, especially someone known, and have access to tricking them into doing things they wouldn't ordinarily have done, perhaps like signing a power of attorney, or, a lot of examples we see is like, oh, sign here so I can just go to the bank for you or something. And they may have signed over their home or what have you. So it's just very simple and they have no clue what's going on. So they're very vulnerable, and we have to pay attention, to our elders and their assets and what's going on in their regular life. It's no more the time that we can only see grandma or parents on the holidays. We need to check in and, talk to them, especially while they're able to discern, what is happening in their everyday world. We need to be aware of that as well.
That's 70% of these types of cases, you say that are being perpetrated by people close to us, family and loved ones, that it really is a horrifying statistic. So speaking of which, how then can family members, caregivers proactively safeguard financial accounts, assets before, I guess, the person dealing with some cognitive decline gets to a point where it becomes really severe?
Well, first of all, one of the more easier and feasible ways is to do some estate planning, okay? And so some call it estate planning, some call it advanced planning, but basically what that is a few different things. Number one, if you own property, you want to put your property in a trust. So therefore you have someone that you have decided while you're cognitively able that can be a second set of eyes and help control and keep up with your assets. So a trust would be good. The next thing is an advanced healthcare directive. You know, we want to have something on file, as we saw with COVID, as my example. People go to the hospital, no one had access to their medical information or could help make a decision on their behalf. Because there was nothing in place. So the healthcare individuals are able to make that decision for them. So if you have a healthcare directive in place, you have a trusted individual who knows, you know, what you like. Some people don't want to be on a ventilator, so on and so forth. So having that puts the family at ease. Everyone kind of knows what's going on, and it makes it less likely for someone to come in as the neighbor and take advantage because of a medical situation. And it's a protection layer. And the other thing I want to really talk about too is a power of attorney, you know, which is similar to the Healthcare Advantage Directive, but that is only for health implications. A power of attorney is over your finances. And so in making a decision now and having someone be your second set of eyes, you know, be a trustee perhaps on your power of attorney or trust, you know, you can have one or two individuals or even an organization if you don't have family, but they're able to then fill out any type of reservations you may have attached to your checking account, your Social Security, retirement, or what have you. And the great thing about a power of attorney is that you can select one or two individuals to oversee that with you, or you can have, like I said, an organization, or you can select that individual oversees all your financial stuff, or maybe you want one person to do your housing and another person to do your retirement and Social Security because, you know, maybe they're more better at accounting. So you have control over that, being able to make decisions now. And so again, with my same COVID thought pattern, you know, at the time, people couldn't go out, they couldn't go to the bank, they couldn't do certain things, they couldn't articulate conversations, weren't good at being online and understanding those things. And so having that in place allows you to have a second set of eyes on your stuff that then can prevent somebody from coming in and having you sign a document to get access to your stuff, because you already have that in place and you've already provided it to all your different, you know, banking, credit cards, retirement accounts, so on and so forth. So if someone comes in and try to fraud you, it's just very difficult if you're not the trusted person on that power of attorney that you've already had filed. And you're not locked into that. You can change that at any time, you know, by creating a new one and having more people in place. And then also, it should be done by a licensed estate planning attorney. So it's nothing that you can do online or anything like that. It should be by a licensed estate attorney to make sure that you understand and you have everything in place for your future to live comfortably.
Great advice, and great information. Thank you, Alyssa, especially as so many of us either at some stage will be caregivers or receiving care. So it's great to plan ahead and have that kind of vision. Now, and I
Before
hope,
we continue, I apologize. Let me just segue into this. So Bethzetic organization, we host a lot of different clinics and things like that. So we are doing a clinic in Los Angeles County for Los Angeles County residents at the Bethzetic office that I think the phone number will be in the chat, or you can contact me directly on September the 11th. Individuals from LA County will have the opportunity to come into the Bethzetic office, hear the information about advanced healthcare directives, and work with an attorney that same day to have their paperwork done. And so that's a free service. You just have to make it to the Wilshire area. We'll pay for your parking, provide light snacks. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there to let you know that those are services that Betzedic offers as well to the community for free.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. And we look forward to posting it in chat. And also, after this event, you will receive an email with resources that we're sharing today. So my next question, Petra, I also like to invite you to weigh in on this, but we'll start with Alyssa. What legal protections exist for older adults with dementia right now? And where do you still see gaps that expose them, or things that, or additional legal protections that folks may need?
Well, first of all, if we're talking about gaps, part of it is the lack of education, the lack of knowing who and where to go for resources that is right in our community. But a lot of times that information doesn't filter down, into any inner city parameters. Okay. And so it's good to be able to get out there, educate and empower seniors, caregivers, and different organizations that work with them as to what is available. So the educational piece to me is kind of like one of the main themes. The other thing too is we find in those areas, it's a hard conversation. Who wants to talk about later on and what could happen? And so there may be some religious beliefs and different things and barriers culturally that needs to be addressed on the educational piece as well. And so just being able to open up some of those doors and some of those conversations is very useful in getting folks involved with their family. And it's a family thing. It's no longer the day, back in the day, they write a will or whatever, and they put it in the top shelf of the closet and nobody knows about it. And then, when something happens, you never find it until maybe the house is sold or something happens that wasn't intended, and you find this piece of paper in a box that was never shared. And so I think the educational piece involving the whole family is really a gap that needs to be worked on.
Thank you. Any legal protections that you can think of that either exist right now or would be good to have?
Yeah, so some of the legal protections is what we talked about, the estate planning, power of attorney, healthcare directive, trust, and things like that. But then if it becomes a little too late and the memory has surpassed a certain way, then you also have a conservatorship option, which allows someone in the family to go to the courting system and say, hey, dad is declining, not giving me permission to do these things. I'm witnessing certain things. It could even be like hoarding or losing weight, no utilities. You have to pay attention to what's going on. And you go to the court system and apply for conservatorship to be able to take over dad's lifestyle and responsibility. So that's like a last case scenario, but it's still a scenario that works. And Betzedic also offers a no cost free online clinic to anyone in Los Angeles County. We will give you the paperwork. We will coach you with the attorney. We'll get everything set up and guide you. And then at that point, you would then go to the judge, file your case, and wait for your time in court. And so 70% of Los Angeles County has come through the Betzedic no-cost clinic. And so, we're out there trying to provide you with whatever we can for your understanding and for you to be able to move forward with your loved one.
Thank you. Peter, did you want to weigh in or talk at all
Yes.
about, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Elisa. We appreciate Betzedic for what they've been doing for a number of years. I appreciate that. One of the things that we're talking about also is that we can prepare in advance and we don't have to wait for a diagnosis to occur. And as adults, that we do have the responsibility of taking care of these actions so that you can make sure whatever your wishes are for medical, financial, and so on, that those wishes are clearly stated. So it's important to do that and not wait. So even after this seminar, today is Wednesday, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, at least 3 days, and you can try to do something. The other part is, what does your support system look like? Not everyone has a large family. Not everyone, sometimes individuals never had children. So it's not just biological family, whatever your family looks like, a neighbor who's always been there. And so looking at your support system and being able to have discussions and sharing what your wishes are, I think is really, really important. And then all of the forms and avenues that Alyssa mentioned, all of the for finances, medical, and so on. It's really important to get those done. And I think, Alyssa, that you should do it. It's been recommended to do it when you're 18. So all of us are past 18.
I don't know. I think I'm close around there. But
Well,
let,
one
let,
thing to segue on that, what we have to remember is, you have kids, grandkids, or whatever, when they get 16 and 17, they're able to go into the doctor's office and leave you in the waiting room, and so that has happened to me. So just think about, they're going to college, they're doing these other things, your medical information through HIPAA laws are private. So therefore, even though I may be a mom and my daughter is in college, I really have no say so. So it is very important to have your younger adults from 18 up, have some of these things in place, at least the healthcare directive, more so than the power of attorney. They may not have access or assets, should say, for a power of attorney, but the healthcare directive, those things are important for our adults over age 18.
Great information. So speaking about institutions, organizations, and this question I'll put to both of you to weigh in. So banks, credit unions, financial institutions, what role should they play in helping to prevent elder financial exploitation, or even recognizing that maybe somebody who's their customer or banking with them may start seeing, may be experiencing the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia? Should they have some protections?
Yes, most definitely they should have some protection, and there's some new legislation that's out right now. I can't think of the Senate code or whatever that it falls up under, but it's about the banking institution, having them have more layers in place, because a lot of times people go into the bank and they take out amounts of money that they usually don't. So the bank and credit card companies know your pattern of behavior generally. And so it's kind of difficult, because it is your money at the bank. You go to the bank, hey, I want, $10,000, and maybe you only have 12, or maybe you have 100,000, but you never take that out. And so the banker may inquire, this is unusual. Are you being scammed? And a lot of times when you're being scammed, you believe the scammer. They're going to take my Social Security, they're going to hurt my grandkid, whatever the case may be. And you can be very adamant about pulling that money out, and then a few days later realizing that you may have been scammed. So there's legislation out there to try to have the banks be more accountable in having some layers in place and recognizing that this is an unusual situation and trying to help prevent it before it occurs. And so the same with the credit card companies. And so other things you'll see, you may go to Walmart, Target, Western Union, or something like that. They have signs up. If you're sending this to somebody you don't know, or if somebody's asking you for gift cards, this, that, the other, stop and think about it. This may be a scam, so on and so forth. So those are just things that are in place on a preventive measure, as trying to be a reminder to folks as to what could or could not be. Because once that money is sent, before you get out the door, that money's gone. It's not usually able to be recuperated, very rarely through a Western Union. But other than that, it's just absolutely gone.
Thank you, Alyssa. Peter, do you want to weigh in what
Yes.
what's how institutions maybe can help in the prevention?
Yes, thank you so much. This is really, really important. We're living in aging society, all of us are aging and people are living longer. And so there are some things that are necessary, as Alyssa mentioned. Banks know the patterns of their clients and they can see what's going on. But banks, I believe, and all of the tellers, the staff are mandated reporters. So they have the ability to report things to Adult Protective Services and to be able to identify red flags and to be able to kind of cut things off as soon as they see something is going on. It's important also for banks to have some training about what dementia-friendly America looks like, a dementia-friendly community, a dementia-friendly neighborhood. What does that look like? People are living with dementia, and living with a disease means that they still have to function, or families assist in different ways. And what does that look like for the banks whose for the elders who loved to go in and have a conversation? They knew the tellers and they spoke with them. It was somewhat of a social event. So how do they still honor those individuals who have maintained their funds in the particular banks? So having a role with the community, looking at community needs. Many banks do offer education, but I don't know that it's being done in a way that's making an impact in our communities. So it may mean that they partner with organizations to be able to offer more of this financial education and the opportunities and the forms and all of the measures that they have, so that people feel a little bit more safe as it relates to maintaining their funds in a particular financial institution. But there's always room for improvement with all of us, because we're actually speaking about a lot of generations at the same time. And so for the younger generations who are potentially in the banks and not have a sense of dementia and what that looks like and all the needs that accompany that. So there's a lot of discussion that needs to be had.
Let
Thank
me
you, Pete.
also add too,
Go ahead.
the most important thing that came out of Petra's mouth and that we've been talking about all day is education. It's education. So I don't care if it's with the first line responders, with the caregivers, social workers themselves. We all need to be constantly educated and cross the board educated. You know, I can know whatever I want to know about scams and this, that, the other, but how much do I know how it correlates with Alzheimer's and dementia? So it's important that we work together as a community and understand, like she said, the younger generation, and knowing that. And then the other thing I want to just remind folks of is Adult Protective Services 24/7 every day in every county. Anybody could call it in. So if you notice something weird with your neighbor or whatever, don't feel ashamed in saying something, because we'd rather someone say something that can be preventive
Yeah.
just to do a check-in. So it's 24/7 all the time. You know, you can make 2 or 3 reports if that's what you need to do over a period of time, but please know that it's available. It's in every county, nationwide, so on and so forth, and utilize those services.
Excellent.
Yeah, if
Thank
I
you very
can
much,
just add to
Petra.
that, if I can
Go-
add to that, Adult Protective Services, if you make a call, it's confidential and you don't have to know all the details, just that you have this suspicion that something's going on, and let them do the work of investigating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more, the importance of education and sharing information. You may not necessarily be the one going through that, but just sharing your experience and what you know with others could help somebody down the line. So really appreciate making that point. And the second point, that we have to also sometimes be extra strong advocates for our loved ones who might be dealing with this. I'm going to invite Ellie Ho on, and then we'll follow that up with Lydia to ask that question. Ellie, are you on with us? You care to unmute yourself and come on and ask your question? We'll give Ellie a second. All right. Well, let's go to Lydia. Lydia, are you on? You have a question? All right. I think, Lydia, if I'm
Sorry.
summarizing. Oh, thank you for being on. Please go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, I don't have any family or friends or neighbors to be reliable. I have a adult child who is very disabled, so I don't have anybody to be my power of attorney. Do you have any suggestions?
Yes, well, there's organizations throughout LA County and thus far that do specifically that, offer those services to individuals, have your paperwork in place, because sometimes when people don't have anything and maybe they have their paperwork in place, they may leave it to an organization, Alzheimer's Association, or whatever they're passionate about. And so, yes, there's organizations that can be looked up. There's different estate attorney groups that do nothing but work with individuals that need these types of services and don't have a trusted person available to work with them. So yeah, you would just look it up and just make sure, again, it has to be a licensed attorney or whatever, and then you can look them up at the California Bar Association to make sure they don't have complaints or different things like that, and start asking those questions. It's available there for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Lydia. So just going back to Ellie's question, and for the benefit of others, maybe you could just elaborate on this, Alyssa. She wants to know whether these services that Betsedic offers, are they available throughout the year or just during September 11th?
Well, the clinics, the September clinic we do all the time. October is a estate planning month, so we try to hold events during that time. However, if you have a group, if you're in a senior center or a country club, whatever your group is, if you have a group that needs this information, you can work through me where we can come out, do a presentation, and if you get enough interested parties that are willing to be registered, we can then come back a month or so later and do a clinic just for your organization. So it may not always be one that we hold at Betsedic, but we will go throughout the community and do these types of services. And we've been able to do that with funding from, the Department, LA County Department of Consumer and Business Affairs and what have you. So working on a joint basis, again, getting the educational piece out there and then getting the work done. And so we've always done the work at Betsedic, but this just expands the opportunity to go out into smaller settings and be able to have these services for you. So if anyone is interested in something like that, please get in touch with me and we can take the conversation further to see what needs can be met for your organization.
Wonderful. Before I go to Lisa's question about assigning an advisor, Petra, do you want to maybe share any events maybe that folks can connect with Alzheimer's LA that are coming up, or that you want to make them aware of?
Yes, Alzheimer's Los Angeles in the fall, starting September, which is here, will be here soon. We have 3 advances in Alzheimer's research conferences. One will be at the Skirball. That's the first one. The second will be in Downey for the Latino community in Spanish. And the third one will be at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills. And that's for the African American community. And so you can visit us on our website, alzheimersla.org, or you can call 844-435-7259 regarding which one you'd like to attend. And we'll be happy to have you there because there's a lot of research, and we want even our lay members to know, what does this research mean for our families and for the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Lisa, do you want to come on and elaborate or share for the benefits of our audience?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank the Alzheimer's Association and Petra directly, because I'm on that site all the time. Weekly, I try to attend almost everything they have. It's just never a time that I'm in the company of Petra and others in her capacity that I don't pick up something new that I have no clue about, that helps me in providing the education and helps me in my personal life with my family as well. So just thank you for that type of work. And I just appreciate being able to have these types of things. You know, AARP, you guys have your huge website with all your different scams that is 24 hours, the educational concept. And so those things are useful to me as well. So just being able to have access to that and share that information is just a valuable piece. So thank you
Wonderful.
both.
Thank you very much, Alyssa. Let's go to Lisa now. Lisa, do you care to share your share a little bit with us? Okay.
Hi,
Um,
Strat. This is
hi.
Lisa. I just wanted to, I'm not an outreach specialist, but work for the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation with the state of California. I did share a resource about what your bank or credit union can do to help you protect your accounts, and provided the link in the chat for more resources for your audience. But it wasn't a question, it was just to share a resource.
Right. Thank you very much, Lisa, and good organization. Always pleasure working with you folks over there. So I appreciate you sharing that. Um, there's some misconceptions about folks dealing with Alzheimer's, dealing with dementia. Do you have any that you maybe want to dispel, that you feel we have the wrong side of the stick on? Petra, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, there are many misconceptions, and one of them is that Alzheimer's is a normal part of aging, and it is not. And however, one of the risk factors is aging. So the older you get, the more at risk you are. But we know, I think most of us may know someone who's in their 90s or potentially 100 and still doing well cognitively. So that's a myth that we certainly want to clear up. What happens is there is discrimination also with this disease, and there are so many beliefs that people have about this disease that actually impacts care and your people's approach to care, how they whether or not an individual remains at home, and decisions that are made. It's really, really important to consider the individual and what their needs are. Caring for someone with a dementia is caring for someone with a dementia. It's very difficult and challenging and overwhelming. Alzheimer's Los Angeles understands that. And going back to education, we provide the education necessary to those who have accepted the role of a caregiver to talk about what that looks like for that person and the family. Again, sometimes there isn't biological family, but what does your village or your support system look like? There's so many other people to assist. The other thing is that these myths prevent people from reaching out to get help. And so it's important to, if you are caring for someone, to be a part of a support group. Support groups are safe places where individuals who are caring for a loved one, it could be a group of adult children or spouses, or male or female. And so it just is something to consider. But calling Alzheimer's Los Angeles just to have a chat about your concerns, your issues is a great starting point. And that 844 number, a human answers. And so that's really important for us, that somebody still is able to answer and assist families as much as possible.
Thank you, Petra. Alyssa, let me come back to you. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of what you see as being the emotional toll or the impact of somebody dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia as was they become a target or a victim of fraud? We often don't hear about that. Can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing?
Well, the toll, the emotional toll is just overwhelming. I've had, clients that have been scammed and realized later they've been scammed, gave up their fortune, retirement, home, or whatever. They, some people become suicidal, unfortunately, they don't want to share with their family because their family may take away their ability to make decisions. They get very depressed. I've had people check themselves into the hospital for a 5150 evaluation, 3 days of mental accessibility to determine is there something wrong with them. So the emotional impact is high, and you see it from a varied class of individuals. So when we're looking at scams, I've over the years, I've had police officers and different career individuals that have been scammed, and you're thinking to yourself, how does this happen to me? I'm a doctor, I'm this, how does this happen? And so the emotional toll it takes on somebody who feels like they're this super professional, or a senior who's like super savvy and gets everything, and then they become the target and realize it's just very overwhelming. And so, there's support groups and different things like that to let them know, it's not just you, don't feel bad or whatever, but, the toll can be very devastating on down to suicide, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, very difficult to hear. But let me ask you this. So law enforcement also often plays a role when trying to report that somebody is being targeted for fraud or scam, and they may be an adult dealing with dementia or Alzheimer's. Do you find that law enforcement is properly equipped, trained, or sensitive in dealing with folks who might be a victim of a scam or fraud, but at the same time also somebody dealing with cognitive decline?
And so what I find, again, using my favorite COVID example, is that these things which have been in place all along have become heightened. And so to my knowledge, in Los Angeles County for sure, is you have almost every unit of law enforcement that has a unit within their agency that deals with elder abuse, fraud, and scams. It's nothing new, but it is now to everyone's attention. And so in that unit, they're very aware of a lot of the things that seem fraudulent, and some of the units even go out and do educational presentations themselves. So it's always good to connect with law enforcement. It's always good to report it, because again, a lot of times we don't want to report. There's probably 1 in 15 that actually makes the report, from being embarrassed, or maybe they don't want to make the report because it's somebody they know, their grandkid or something, and don't want them to get in trouble. So I think that law enforcement and everybody is working together. We do at Bedzedic a function every year around World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, and you both have attended and participated. And, at that event, I might have 40, 50 officers there from different LA units, DAs, and what have you, because everyone either, like Preacher said, has experience, will experience, and needs to know what is happening and how we can come together as community partners to work this out, and even for ourselves and our own family. Like I said, I'm on Alzheimer's website and whatever all the time, and so yeah, it's very important, and they are aware, and they are actively trying to do more and more and more, because at the end of the day, if we're talking about a fraud or something, a scam, $900 of theft is a felony. So therefore, if I've given away $50,000 because I was tricked into it, that's a felony. And so you report it to your police department. It goes to the DA's office. They have special enforcement units that deal with elder cases only. They communicate with each other. They communicate with community partners and see how they can put all that information together to try to stop the scammer. You know what I'm saying? Because you just go from one victim to the next.
Absolutely. Petra, same question to you, but let me also add, are you seeing folks comfortable reporting when it comes to when the perpetrator is a relative, or is there some sort of hesitancy not reporting when there's a relative involved perpetrating these abuses?
Yes, hesitancy for sure. They, over the years, an aging parent and the adult child is, maybe there's one child and they're assisting the parent and they've done something and it's a crime, and that parent still has that love for the child and just does not press charges, and that places them in a very vulnerable and difficult situation. But that's a part of life for so many of our elders, and I don't think that it's changed over the years. But we, as Alyssa was saying, just we appreciate working with law enforcement officers here in Los Angeles, LAPD, and the Sheriff's Department, and based on their jurisdiction that they may do different things, may do things differently, but we appreciate their efforts to come out and partner with us and to be able to educate the community about the process, even if something goes on, and calling them and what you should say, and what the strategies that they use if somebody wanders away from home, and the things that are available. So they also, when they go out, have these teachable moments with families to be able to say, are you aware of Alzheimer's Los Angeles, or of this organization or that one, to be able to point individuals to getting assistance. So we appreciate working with law enforcement, who, as you know, they're called for everything.
Absolutely.
And let me chime
Absolutely.
in on that too. Elder abuse is is in the penal code section, so it is punishable from misdemeanor on down to felonies, and so it's no joke, and it can go from loneliness, leaving a person by themselves, taking one family member into another state without the other family members' permission. It just has so many different levels that are really punishable by law. And so a lot of times when we're looking at people that don't want to report on their family, they're thinking to themselves, oh my God, they can go to jail, this can happen, that can happen. And so, but people need to understand that it is punishable by law. And that's another reason why you have law enforcement and other agencies very active in this, because like I said, $900 is a felony, and it just kind of goes from there. Theft, did I trick my person? Are they vulnerable due to neglect, and all those things play a part into it. So there's a huge code section on that. If I find it, I'll let you know. I feel like it's penal code section 368, but just an FYI.
Thank you very much. So folks, as we have a few more minutes left, and I know we touched on this at the top, at the beginning of our conversation, I'm going to ask Alyssa for you to share maybe a few red flags or warning signs that folks should be aware of in terms of identifying whether a loved one could be going through a fraud as a result of their dementia or Alzheimer's. Petra, I'm going to ask you to share maybe a few warning signs or indicators that somebody may be experiencing cognitive decline that we can be aware of. So, Alyssa, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, so when you're talking about warning signs, one of the main things that we see right away is the person has become withdrawn. Okay. And you can't figure out withdrawn. Maybe they're depressed, they're not talking as much, maybe losing weight, change of appearance with clothing, things around the house, and so those are some general signs. But the other thing you might see too is money missing out the bank, utilities off, no food or something like that, which would make you wonder, well, how come you don't have the money to pay the light bill or something like that? So those are some of the most basic warning signs that pop up that a lot of times we may not pay attention to if we're only talking to grandma every quarter or on a holiday.
Check in, check in, check in often, right?
Exactly.
Okay, Petra.
Thank you. One of the things that may happen is the missing of regular appointments, even if it's someone who's still working and they scheduled a meeting, but they don't show up to the meeting. Driving is a privilege. And so there may be some issues with driving, recognizing stop signs and things like that. Or you may notice someone's car has little scratches on it, and which requires a delicate conversation because driving is a matter of independence as well. So think about that if you need to have a conversation with someone about driving with a cognitive decline. And then finances, paying bills over and over, or potentially not paying bills at all, and they remain in the home just kind of stacked up. So these are some really important warning signs to consider that something's going on.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think it's important to be open about it too. You know, if there's trusted neighbors, let them know what your loved one maybe is dealing with. So if you're away and they happen to just take off or wander off or somebody's abusing them, they too can help keep an eye out for them. So I really thank you for sharing that information. We have had a great conversation. I've learned so much. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I do want to thank our special guests, Alyssa Anderson from Bethesda, as well as Peter Niles from Alzheimer's LA for sharing their time and answering all our questions. Great information shared. I also want to thank all folks who joined us for today's conversation for your questions and your comments and your thoughts. Really appreciate those, as well as my colleague behind the scenes, Marissa, for getting everything together for us. Appreciate that. Following this conversation, you will receive an email which contains all the resources and thank you email, should I say, contains all the resources that were shared here today. So thank you. This has been our final conversation in our Scam Chat Wednesday 2025. We've had some great speakers. I do also want to acknowledge them and thank them for joining us in this series throughout August. Providing us great information to help us stay protected from frauds and scams. In the meantime, if you do want to contact somebody, ask questions about a fraud or a scam, please feel free to reach out to our AARP Fraud Watch Network. You can reach them at 877-908-3360 or simply visit us on our website at aarp.org/fraud watch network. Thank you very much. And this is the end of our conversation today. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.